He is one of the most famous people of all time, and many would argue he was a great man, or depending on how you look at him, a vain, evil narcissist who only ever worked to further himself. No, Trump, sit down, this story isn't about you. Julius Caesar was a famous general, politician, and ruler, but many people viewed him as an egocentric narcissist who only cared about power, wealth, and how good he looked. On the plus side, he expanded the Roman Empire, increased its reputation, and helped the poor with much-needed financial reforms. Kings and emperors, envious of his exploits and success, would emulate themselves in his image by calling themselves Caesar, Kaiser, and Tsar. After all, Caesar was a big deal. He even has the month of July named after him. Our story begins during the Republican period of ancient Rome, during which they had conquered much of the Mediterranean. This new power brought enormous influence and wealth, but as a wise man once said, "Mo money, mo problems." Caesar's family, the Julii, were patricians. Patricians were members of Rome's original aristocracy, and together with leading plebeian families, they formed the Roman nobility. This Roman nobility was the ruling class during Caesar's era. When Caesar came of age, the number of surviving patrician families was small. Even though some of the nobles were patricians, being a descendant of one was no longer a political advantage. Back then, pursuing a political career was a difficult task, even for the most talented of nobles. The cost and requirements of pursuing politics in Rome during Caesar's period were high, and the competition was fierce, but if one were to succeed, the profits would be huge. During this time, the entire Mediterranean world was under the control of the Roman nobility. They were hated and began to lose what credibility they had. The mismanagement of the state by the aristocracy was unsustainable. So, you might wonder, how did this diverse and sophisticated society deal with these difficult issues? With violence and military dictatorship, of course. And who better to spearhead all this than the man of the hour, Julius Caesar? At 10 years old, Caesar had grown up fast and took charge of his household after his father died. Living without a father meant the young Caesar would have to pursue his political career on his own. As for love, Caesar thought he could make it work. Well, at least make it work for him. Strategically, he married into a robust and influential family. However, due to civil strife, Caesar's wealth was confiscated and life threatened, forcing him to flee Rome immediately. As a result, he joined the army and eventually became an officer, but his ultimate goal was to return to Rome and continue his political career. Caesar spent 4 years in Asia Minor and won commendations for his bravery. After the situation in Rome relaxed, Caesar returned home and pursued a life in politics. Caesar was utterly ruthless in his endeavors. For instance, while crossing the Aegean Sea, a group of pirates kidnapped him. They requested 20 talents for his ransom, to which Caesar snickered and proposed they seek 50, as he was an influential and important figure. But guess what? Caesar was a badass, and once he was released, he gathered a bunch of men and hunted the pirates down and crucified them. Plus, he did this all as a private citizen on his own accord. Caesar quickly established his political career, and at 31 he secured himself a governorship of a province in Spain. This new position allowed Caesar to join the Senate automatically. After the death of his first wife, Caesar married another woman, who just so happened to be a distant relative of Pompey, an important figure in Roman society, but we'll get to that later on. The marriage elevated his social standing, but despite his new status, Caesar failed to win further esteem with members of the Senate. So instead of buddying up with them, he focused on winning over the ordinary people of Rome. He walked through the crowded streets and mixed with the poorer classes, gaining their trust and respect. His efforts and rising popularity led to him being appointed as head of the public games in the Roman capital. He used his new platform to host some of the most lavish and expensive events Rome has ever seen. Through his popularity with the people and, well, more shady activities like bribery and intimidation, he continued to climb the political ladder. Unfortunately, Luckily for Caesar, his political ascension and lavish lifestyle landed him in a mountain of debt. To help alleviate his financial burdens, Caesar allied himself with Marcus Crassus, who paid off a substantial amount of his debt, allowing Caesar to win his election to the Consulate. The Consulate was the ultimate prize, as it usually led to a lucrative provincial governorship, which meant more power and wealth. And remember Pompey from earlier? He was a celebrated general and statesman, and possibly the most powerful man in Rome. Well, anyway, he had some beef with Crassus over the events involving someone called Spartacus. Caesar, Crassus, and Pompey formed a political coalition called the First Triumvirate, as a way of working together to get what they all wanted. Caesar blatantly used the consulship for personal gain, which was a big no-no in the eyes of the Senate. When his consul was over, Caesar was appointed governor of a wealthy Roman province, which gave him command of several legions. Compelled by his ambition and crippling debts, Caesar invaded Gaul without permission from the Senate. You can start to see a prominent pattern of Caesar and the Senate not getting along. Yeah, this wouldn't be good for both the Republic and Caesar. By invading Gaul, he aimed to consolidate his political position by achieving a triumph, which to the uninitiated is a religious and civil ceremony awarded to military commanders after they have achieved a military victory on behalf of Rome. Over the next 8 years, Caesar led his army to conquer Gaul, which was no small feat. He even invaded Britain twice. As a result, thousands would die, and even more would face a life of slavery. The conquest of Gaul would win Caesar much esteem with the Roman public and allow him to pay off his debts while keeping a substantial profit. Because of this great conquest, Caesar possessed the money, fame, and ultimately the ability to achieve even greater success in Roman politics. However, despite this victory, many people in the Senate did not trust Caesar and wanted him to be arrested for his crimes that he had committed as consul. Even Pompey, his old ally, opposed him. The Senate ordered Caesar to step down and give up control of his army. Instead, Caesar crossed the river Rubicon at the head of his army, coining the phrase, "The die has been cast." This led to a long and grueling civil war between Caesar and Pompey. Obviously, there is more social reasons behind the civil war as well. Pompey and Caesar's army would finally come face to face in the decisive battle of Pharsalus in Greece. Despite the odds, Caesar proved to be the more capable commander and defeated Pompey, who then fled to Egypt, with Caesar in pursuit. Upon arriving, Caesar discovered that the Egyptian king had executed Pompey, thus making Caesar the undisputed victor in the civil war. Caesar's arrival in Egypt is also famous because this is where he met Cleopatra. While it's not certain that the tales of Caesar and Cleopatra sailing down the Nile deeply in love is true, I can safely say that this is a rabbit hole we don't have time for. Anyways, Caesar was a man of many talents, and no, before you ask, having multiple affairs wasn't one of them. One of his primary skills was killing people, and it's rumored he uttered the famous line, "I came, I saw, I conquered," after defeating a foreign army near the Black Sea. Caesar eventually returned to Rome to celebrate the victory he always dreamed of. Out of fear and respect, the Senate declared Caesar dictator for 10 years. And yes, dictator was a formal position within Roman society. This particular appointment was highly unusual, as the title of dictator is only sanctioned during a time of crisis for 6 months. But hey, the last guy who tried to stop him was Pompey, and we all know how that turned out. Caesar inherited a chaotic and disorganized Rome. To stabilize it, he carried out significant reforms in public works, starting with the construction of libraries and canals. Despite these measures, Rome still faced many problems. So, what do you do to fix a failing Roman society? Why, it's simple, just invade the Parthians. So, as Caesar began making preparations for the invasion, many in the Senate began to take notice of his activities and growing powers. His official title was that of a dictator, but his behavior was suspiciously looking more and more like a king. One by one, the senators began to turn on Caesar, including many of his old supporters. They began began to conspire against him and decided that assassination was the best course of action to remove him from power. Assassination attempts in real life must be as cinematic as they are in the movies, because wow, over 60 assassins ambushed him. Like, how dramatic do you have to be? Cassius and Brutus, formal rivals of Caesar who joined the Roman Senate, led Caesar's assassination. They dubbed themselves the Liberators. Huh, sounds like a Marvel franchise. After Caesar's death, he quickly became a new Roman martyr. Upper, lower, and middle-class nobles gathered at Caesar's funeral, and angry crowds attacked the houses of Cassius and Brutus. Just 2 years after Caesar's death, he became the first consecrated person in Rome. The Senate also gave him the title of the Divine Julius. A power struggle ensued in Rome, leading to the end of the Roman Republic. Caesar's great-grandnephew, Gaius Octavian, played on the late ruler's popularity, assembling an army to fight back the military troops defending Cassius and Brutus. Yeah, you probably know Gaius Octavian. He also went by the name Augustus Caesar. Yeah, sound familiar? Well, that guy was the first emperor of the Roman Empire. Julius Caesar changed Rome forever. His rise to power and death signaled the death of the Roman Republic and later birth of the Roman Empire. Even people who know nothing of Caesar as a historic personality are familiar with his family name as a title signifying a ruler who is in some sense uniquely supreme or paramount, like the meaning of Kaiser in German or Tsar in Russian. So yeah, talk about dramatic. Julius Caesar's life was quite the spectacle, and it changed the world forever. So let us know in the comments below if you think he changed it for better or for worse. And don't forget to give the video a thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks.